My name is Carrie Scott. I'm the Literacy Coordinator for Carlsbad City Library. This segment is a focus on the nuts and bolts of your anthology creation. In particular, we will cover the submission process, editing the entries, activities to encourage participation, and sample paperwork. Most of the decisions about your submission process will have been worked out in your planning time, but now is the time to implement those plans and flesh out the details. Here are some key questions to answer. Who is eligible to submit? In Carlsbad, we had all our submissions come from just learners, but that was also our theme. You may want to consider having tutors submit or even inviting the whole community. What format are you going to accept your submissions in? Do you want just email? Do you want it paper mail? Are you willing to accept handwritten submissions? We were able to accept all forms of submissions here because we're centralized and everyone meets in this building, but you'll want to consider your locations and how you want to receive those submissions. Are you going to include all of the submissions into your anthology? We chose to do that. However, if you choose to have a panel review the submissions and make selections, then you will need to have criteria that they're using to make those selections. Will you have a word count limit? We did not have a word count limit. If we were to do it again, we might consider that. 500 words is just a little bit more than one double-spaced type page. And that you could use as a guideline to decide if you want to have a limit to the length of your submissions. And then set your opening and closing date. How early are you willing to take your submissions? And then put a deadline on your submissions so that you can work into your deadline for the actual publication of the book. A sample call for submissions and a sample submission form are included in the how-to guide, along with a sample release form. Once you've received all your written submissions, the next step is editing. You'll want to decide how much you want to edit. Are you going to edit with just a light touch, or are you going to do a little bit more professional editing? In all cases, though, you'll want to preserve the voices of your authors, especially if they're learners. This is a frequently asked question as covered in depth in the Part 7 video. Finally, you'll want to have the book proofread, and you want to make sure that someone proofreads it before going to the printer and that someone should not have seen the book before. You want those fresh eyes on the book. You might even consider having 2 or 3 proofreaders just so you avoid having any typos in your book. Writing, especially writing for publication, can be quite intimidating for learners. Well, in fact, it can be intimidating really for anyone. So you can pretty much assume that just inviting writings to include in your anthology probably won't bring in many entries. You want to build some support around it, either workshops or personal coaching, even a personal invitation from you, encouraging the learner to write. The panel video in Part 8 is programming and workshops, and it will give you some ideas on how to do this. Be sure those ideas include providing writing prompts for your learners. Writing prompts are extremely helpful to get the creative juices going, and no one finds it easy to sit down to a blank piece of paper and just start writing something. In your how-to guide, you will find an assortment of writing prompts to share with your tutors to use with learners. These exercises have proven to be effective to rev up the writing process. Please proceed to Part 7 to hear more about the very important editing process.